Well, hello, everybody. My name's Ethan Castleberry, and you're watching Victory Talks. Today, as always, every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, we're here with Pastor Castleberry, and we are here a few minutes early. So as people log on, I know that you're logging on, we're going to ask you to leave some comments in the bottom. We're going to have some discussion, and we'll get to that in just a second because I know everyone is just now getting their notification because they have subscribed. They've left a little section there in our page to be notified at everything that pops up. So whatever we post, many of you are getting that. So tonight, we are going to talk on several different subjects. Welcome, everybody. I see a couple people logging on now. A couple different subjects. First of all, preparing for change. And I'm trying to get everything situated technically right now. So as you log on, as we have people coming on right now, we got several, why don't you go ahead and leave us a comment. Here's the question, and I'm going to ask the question again here in a few minutes, but here's the question for the night we're going to start off with. The question is, where are the first two places that you're going to go now as soon as everything is lifted and you feel safe? And that could be relative to you. Whenever you feel safe to go out, where will you go? The top two. I know many of you, this is a church page, Victory Church. Many of you are going to try to suck up to Pastor now and tell him that you're going to go to the church. Well, then what is your number two place? Where are you going to go? So why don't you put that in the comments below. Where are you going to go whenever you feel strong enough, healthy enough, safe enough to get out into town, wherever it is, something that you haven't done in, say, the past 2 months. So go ahead and put that in the comments below. I see some comments coming up. So go ahead. We want to hear from you today. Just as always, if you have any questions that you do want to discuss, go ahead and put those in there as well. The top two places you're going to go as soon as you feel safe and ready to get into town, whether it be shopping, whatever. We're going to talk a little bit about current news. Church and Chinese food. I love that. Church and two good things. I love it. All right. So what time is it? It's 7:58 right now. So we're still going to wait on a few more people, of course. We're going to kick it off at 8 o'clock. So those of you who are getting on right now, what are the top two places you're going to go as soon as you feel safe, healthy, and ready to get out, go into town, go shopping, whatever it is you want to do? Where is it you will go? Just go ahead and leave that to us. We want to know who it is that's watching us today. What kind of person are you? HEB in person and browse for an hour. Wow. HEB, you can do that. You can get lost for an hour too.
Yeah.
Oh, see my mom and go to church. I love it. Yeah, let's hear from you. I know we've got some more people. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Go ahead and tell us that. We want to hear from you. So, Pastor, why don't you go ahead and just greet us today? Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, maybe.
Oh man. Well, all right. First of all, I'm glad to be here. Second of all, I have been finishing up school. I am one assignment away, two papers away, I think, from finally finishing up with my master's degree. And I am. I got a dog. My wife bought me a dog. Come here, puppy. Come here. Come here. Hang on one second. I'll get her or get him. It's a him. Jojo. Come here. Here he is. And so
JoJo.
I got a puppy, and it's a mutt. It's a mixed breed thing, but it's cute and it's pretty smart. I think it's part Chihuahua and part something else. But anyway, I got a dog. Today's Tuesday, so I think it was Monday, I think, yesterday or day before. I'm not sure. But anyway, JoJo. And so did that. Then I planted a garden back a couple weeks ago. And so, a couple of months ago. So that's been kind of keeping me busy, which is good. And I've always got several things going on. So, and we'll talk about some of those things tonight. So anyway, I'm just glad to be here and staying busy. And I'm alive. Thank the Lord.
All right. Well, thank you for leading that with us. We love your dog. I know at least the family that knows you and Mom well enough, we knew it probably wouldn't take too long for y'all to get another dog.
Yeah.
And y'all always get the good ones for some reason. some
Yeah,
reason.
somehow. Mom always picks them out. I'm always just kind of going along, and she picks them out, and I treat them good. They love me, so that's all right.
All right, so it's 8:01. If you haven't already, why don't you go ahead, leave us a comment in the comment section below, and let us know what are the 2 places that you're going to go as soon as you feel safe and free enough to get out of your house, get out of wherever you've been staying at for the past 2 months. What are you going to do? I've seen in the comments Chewy's, church, Chinese food, sushi. The list goes on and on. Why don't you leave a comment in the comment section below? Let us know where you're going to go when you are ready. So while they're doing that, here we go. 2 places I'll go: church, and then to pastor's house to play with the puppy, of course. So it is a cute puppy, by the way. But before we get too far into rambling, why don't we just go ahead and kick this off, because we are ready to go. I want you to lead us into the first topic for the night. We're going to talk a little bit about preparation, preparing for change. This is something that, Pastor, I know that you've been prepared. You've prepared your whole life for all kinds of things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why don't you give us your insight, what you're feeling, what you're seeing, and lead us in on that.
All right, so I will go back all the way until I was a child. I don't know why, but when I was a little kid, I just always thought, I got to be ready. And then, of course, I was in Boys or Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and all that. And then I was about probably 10 years old. I was riding my 3-wheeler down beside the road, and we lived out in the country. And I come across one of these telephone pedestals, and something caught my eye riding a 3-wheeler, and it was a pocket knife. And I have, from that day on, I was probably 8, or I don't know, I was young, 10 years old maybe. And I have just always carried a pocket knife, and just a weirdo for the most part. But as I got older, I hate to call myself weirdo, but I am in a lot of ways. But uh, as I got older, though, I began to see where just there are, how do I say this without being rude? There are people that seem like they don't think past the end of their nose, man. It's just crazy, and they say stuff without thinking. They do things without thinking, and it's annoying to me. And so I've always been this kind of preparedness, looking ahead kind of person, as much as possible. Look ahead. And I have oftentimes, this is not just something that happens periodically, but I'm way ahead sometimes, too far ahead.
Scary ahead
And
sometimes.
yes, scary ahead sometimes. So it cost me something, I guess. It cost me, just this mentality. But the point is, what I wanted to get to, and then let me throw one more thought in there. About 2 years ago, or maybe 2.5 years ago now, we started at the church small groups. And so they're topical type groups. You don't have to, it's not a Bible study, so to speak. Not all of them, some of them are. But we just start groups of all kinds. We got a baseball team and a running team. And I wanted to have one. I just like to have one. But anyway, I started one. It was called Prepared for Change. And it really wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be I'm going to convert the whole church into being preparedness people like me. But I wanted to kind of let people understand that everything changes. And in life, our lives, everything changes. I mean, the only thing, for instance, if you're young, you got to plan for getting old. If you're healthy, you can plan for being sick. If you're poor, you can plan for being wealthy. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Of course, if you're rich, you can even make plans that there's some possibility that you'll be poor. All of these things. I mean, and it plays into all of life. It just really does. I mean, it's like it just. And again, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to help people to understand what I'm talking about. But when you're young, you don't always take care of your body as good as you should. Well, lo and behold, you're going to need it the older you get, the help, I mean. And so taking care of your teeth and not jumping off of houses or wrecking vehicles and being in wrecks just for the fun of it.
Sounds
That
like you've
stuff is
experienced some of that.
I know, I have, and that's kind of the problem. But you just kind of look ahead. And I would call it, I would say it's kind of like an insurance policy. You buy it, you invest in an insurance policy, not knowing if you'll. I mean, we're looking. I'm talking of typical health. Automobile insurance. You buy automobile insurance. You don't really hope. You hope you never need it, but you better have it. And it's that same mentality on health insurance, on life insurance, on car insurance, and then of course there is what I would say is financial insurance, and that would be like investing and things like that. And so that's always kind of been a lollipop, whatever they call that. I forgot what they call it.
Candy stick.
My candy stick. One of my favorite topics is just helping people to see beyond the moment. And a lot of times I've got my undergraduate degree is in psychology, and I do some counseling. And a lot of times, one of the most revelatory things in the parts of my counseling that I talk to people almost every time I start talking to people about things like, for instance, and I'll give an example: where will you be 20 years from now? You know, and it might be you've got somebody that's I don't know, marriage issues or investment issues, money issues, and you begin to ask them what will your family dynamics look like 20 years from now? And I'm looking at you. You're let's see, 29 years old. You'll be 49 years old. Your little girl right now will be 23 years old.
Don't tell me that. Please don't.
I know it. I know. Isn't that crazy? She's going to be getting like, she's going to probably have a boyfriend and maybe
Oh,
even
you
get
can
married.
stop right there.
That's my point. That's my point. Every time you get somebody into, and they're like, Pastor, I need to talk to you. And you talk to them for a little while and you begin to realize they're not seeing far enough ahead.
Right.
They're living in the moment. And I think that it's important. And this is really just a topic that I chose because I like this stuff. But I think anybody that would listen to me, I would, and those of you that are on this, of course, are listening to me. I hope you turn it on and walk away, but just to pacify me. But my thought is, if I could convince you and show you the importance of looking 20, 40, even 100 years away. Now, my pastor growing up with O.W. Williams, he passed away about two years ago. In fact, about this time 2 years ago. He would always say, and I picked it up, of course, I say it to people too and act like it's my idea. But he would always say, live like today's going to be your last day, but plan like you're going to be here for another 100 years. Mm-hmm. And so what I try to do with my family, with my home, with, I'm not saying me, but with things that I have influence over, is I try to leave a legacy, leave a positive impression, make decent friends, keep good friends, because you just never know what 5, 10, 20 years from now is going to. I try to stay in touch with people for that same reason, because you've got to always plan for change. And now what we've been going through, and I'll bring it into our modern context, what we've been going through with coronavirus, COVID-19, has really shocked a lot of people and scared them, if you will, into all of a sudden having a different perspective, which is good. But what is going to happen is we fall asleep. If that's really a kind of common, my nose is itching again. I guess it's cold in here. Anyway, woo. Excuse me. Okay,
Bless
so
you.
now got that out. Bless me. That's what I should say. Bless me. So, my thought is, what happens is we fall asleep. Okay, this passes, and we go back to the same way of thinking. We go back to the same way of living. But what I'm trying to instigate into those that would hear me, both at the church, in this audience, my own family, is think ahead. Look ahead. I'm not being funny when I say this, and I'm sure not trying to tell the whole world, but I went to Sam's back probably 10, 15 years ago and bought a big box of that cheap toilet paper and set it up in the attic, not in the hot part of the attic, but in the cool part of the attic.
So it's not
And
dry
I have,
rotted.
yeah, I know I'm going to pull it out. It's going to go poof, but it's in those individual rolls. It's Christmas paper wrapped and everything. And the reason I just thought, you never know. And sure enough, when all this happened, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So I just think that we all need to be a little more prepared. One of the things that in studying psychology, I've discovered is culturally, there are some cultures that think, 100, 200, 300 years ahead. Other cultures think 40, 50, 60 years ahead. I'm not sure. I don't have, research to prove it, but I think there's some Americans that think about 6 days, 5 days, 3 days,
If
one day
that.
ahead. Yeah, I mean, it's like, what are they thinking?
They're
And
not.
they buy, or not. And I know from my own experience, been many, many times that I had to buy. Many times I bought the only car. I traded a shotgun for a car one time, and I mean, I tell people just for fun, I should have kept the shotgun and shot the bug because I bought a Beetle, but bug Volkswagen. But my point, there's sometimes you just got to get by. You just got to buy whatever you've got to get. Shoes, clothes, car, whatever you got to do. You just got to do it because you got to do it. But if you ever have the means and the ability to save for a rainy day, or to save for a better vehicle, or to save for a better future for your children, or to invest in your children, that's what you need to do. You just got to quit thinking so short term. So I hope that makes sense.
Sure,
Talk a
makes
lot.
total sense. They're clear as mud. If you could now, considering right now is graduation season, this is the time where we've got a lot of high schoolers who are graduating and they're having to make the decision what they're going to do next, and same with college and so on. So, if say somebody's watching right now, if they were a grandparent, a parent, someone of authority in their life, because let's face it, most kids take influence from many people, and there's certain ones that have the most influence in their life, and it's not going to be straight from the pastor necessarily.
No.
Some of them will listen to you, but they're going to listen to whoever has been there with them and through the trial, whatever it is they've been through throughout the years, and that may be a grandparent, parent, uncle, cousin, something like that. What could they tell or do to influence young people who are, say, they're around that 17, 18-year range, and now they're going to have to make decisions that their whole life will be based off of? What are maybe, say, 3 points that you could direct them to influence them towards? I know it's a hard
Let
question.
me,
I threw it on you.
yeah, that's a very hard one, especially when you start at 17, 18. And the reason why it's
It
hard
starts
there
much
is
earlier than that.
they're learning all their life.
Right.
Oh, they're learning in the womb. They're learning the pizza mama likes. I mean, in her
Right.
her language. But as they grow older, you instill in them values. I would always suggest that you give your children a hero or two to kind of be a reference point, and you let them be exposed, not gullibly, not picking a hero that you don't really know them that well. That's not. I'm not talking about football stars. I'm
Right.
talking about an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent, somebody that is living the life that you want your child um, to mimic, and to give them somebody, and let them kind of look at themselves. Now, I do not think it's not healthy for us to always going around comparing. You ought to be just like your whatever. That's annoying. Number one, you ought to be like your grandfather. That's annoying. We're all separate, individual, different people, but we do have to have something to compare ourselves to. Good people, and of course, we have to have bad people. But we literally have to have bad people, and that's another lesson for another day. But for a 17, 18-year-old, I would say that, and really this comes into my next topic, is setting our priorities. Uh, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit on some of my thoughts. I think investing in your children's education is huge. It's massive. It's massive, huge. I didn't do this when I was young. I started my education late because I was in a pickle, desperate place, if you will. Did a bunch of dumb things, got myself in trouble, and then had to dig my way out. And now I'm trying to dig up higher. So, in education brings options. It doesn't bring a guaranteed success. It's just the way it is. So, I would tell if I had a parent, I would use clear, transparent language, and I would almost use these words: get an education. It's not going to guarantee you success, but it will give you options. And if you use your personal drive, your personal, ethics and morals and all that with your education, then you have opportunity. So education brings options, and then you put all these other ingredients that we put into your life, they bring opportunity. And then once you take those opportunities, and don't be fearful. I think that's another one, because I see so many young people, and I don't want to pick on our generation, because there's other generations that my generation wasn't that great. But I see so many young people that are so scared of this and scared of that and scared of everybody. Man, you know, I just think that you need to have some boldness. And so if you're living a ethical, moral life and you're trying to get an education, be bold about your plans, your future, and let God lead you. Of course, I always throw God in there because it's just a habit, I guess. But that's just the way I feel about it. It's not just a habit; it's the way it is. If you plan your life, get an education, put God in the middle of it, and focus on a good life, and don't let anybody distract you. That would be my advice to a
Right. Well, I would
given
say
8-year-old.
your response, putting God in the middle of it, I think that's more or less a muscle memory when you refer to the definition of success, where
Right.
at some part in your life you determined that success included God right in the middle of everything you do, and it comes out of you, and I think it should. So,
Yes.
if you want to say anything on that before we get to the next part.
Um, no, because my next part actually is about priorities and put where to put God and where to put family and where to put a job. All that. That's another one of my
Okay.
little candy sticks, I think is what you call them.
Well, I want
Candy
to hear
stick?
about it. Let's, yeah, candy stick. You can call it
Yeah,
that.
candy stick. Mhm.
Many people say you need to prioritize. You need to have your priorities straight. They say all these sayings that kind of put people in their place of getting their priorities together. But very few people actually help them to determine what is a priority, because it's so relative nowadays in our postmodern world to have priorities in every direction. And somebody else's number one priority could be different from this person's priority. According to you and, say, Scripture, what is, say, that succession of priorities? How would you describe it?
Well, for me to teach this, and that's what I try to do, is I try to teach young people priorities, and I do this on a regular basis. And I hope, I believe it has influenced some. Others other young people are acting just like what I used to act like. It goes in one ear and out the other. But I'm praying that I can get a lot of people to catch it, if you will. But my simple analogy for priorities, and I ought to write a book about this because it's so stinking amazing. And no, I'm just playing. And so it is important, but it's not amazing. But I use my hand as an example. And really, if we have principles and priorities in order, you don't have to have a whole lot of principles and priorities. You just have to have a few.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is use my fingers as an example or a guide for priorities. And I'm going to do this only because I know some haven't heard me say this, and some have. You're probably going to get you a Coke right now or whatever. Coffee. Don't get a coffee. It's too late for coffee. But anyway, um, my thumb, I look at my thumb as the number one. It's the biggest. It's the biggest digit I have on my hand. That's God. It's the number one priority in our lives. Number two is my index finger. And what I do with my index finger is, because it's the most relevant. That is my family. That is, if you will, that's what I deal with the most. And I'm from. There are some little eras of time where you're like, well, who's my family? Is it my mommy, my daddy, or is it my new wife and kids? You'll figure. Let me just make sure, and our family ought to understand this too. It's God. Before you're married, it's your mom and dad, and your brothers and sisters, your siblings. But after that, after you're out, then it's your husband, your wife, your children. And if you're single, it's those that are important in your life, your church family, or that kind of thing. So I think that if you get those two kind of lined up, then the third one, the middle finger, is the center of our life, and that should be the church. It's like I say all the time, it's not complicated. The center of your life should be the church, and I'll show you why just a second. The ring finger, this finger is your covenant finger, and your covenant both to God and to your family is to provide for one another. So this is your work. So it's God, family, church, work. And then your fourth one, which is a little teeny tiny one over here that doesn't sometimes even matter, except for to check your ear or whatever. But that I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But that is just all the other things, the hobbies and the friends that come into your life. And the reason why that's important is if you put God, I'm going to do it this way, if you put God first, He's going to bless all these coming down. And if you do this properly, these should bless everything going up. Your friends should be a blessing to you all the way through your life. Your hobbies should be a blessing to you. Anytime your hobbies or your friends began to cause problem in your families or your church schedule or your relationship with God, they got to change. It's not the priorities that are out of whack. These people are, you put them in, or rephrase that. You put your priorities out of whack. Okay. So you've got to be willing to change that. Now, the problem with a lot of young people is they're so ambitious that they forget the order. And I was like that. So I'm not saying this in a condemning way. It's just forget what's important. And there are people, I'll, and again, I'm not picking on anybody, but single adults, sometimes they forget what's important. And I'm not, I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, yeah, there are a lot of things I shouldn't say, but that's just the way it is. There's things that, even like I said, when I was talking about earlier about your change and life changes and stuff like that, these will change maybe by characteristic, but not in principle. God should always be number one. Your family should always be number two. Your life should revolve around the church, and you should always have, your job that would provide for everything else. And if it's not a job, it should be school. That should be school. So it's simple. I don't even know. I've been teaching that for 15 years, 20 years now, probably. But I think that it's important that people get it.
Right, I agree completely. And I see where going to the next topic that's actually intertwined in this, and it seems to be a principle of prioritization, is the determination to not be a victim. That's something I saw in your notes.
Yes.
If you would speak to that, let us know. What do you mean?
I want to fight. Not really. I don't want to fight. Man, it drives me crazy. The other day, and what really brought this up is because on Sunday I was preaching, and of course I study, I pray, and all that, and then I let God do the work. And I was preaching, and it come out. We are not victims.
Yes.
If you're nobody, and this victim identity has been like pervasive in our society, and everybody's got to have a little identity about, well, I suffer with this and I suffer with that. I'm going through this. I'm going through that. Man, if we want to start, one-upping each other, playing that game one-up, well, you did that. Look at what I did. We would be in a mess. Thankfully, so far, at least 51% of our society does not believe they're a victim so far. But Lord have mercy. You cannot be what God called you to be if you stay a victim. You can't do it. God did not make victims. God made victorious
right.
people with a plan in their life. And He did load, this is what's crazy, He did load some of His victorious people with problems, and they needed them. Paul said, and we could throw, you just use your imagination. You could throw anything in there. He's got a thorn in the flesh, so to speak.
Right.
Well, what is that thorn? I don't know, but maybe it was maybe it was physical, maybe it was
Mm-hmm.
mental, maybe it was something else. But the fact is, he wanted it gone. He come to the Lord and said, God, take it away. And God said, nope, because
Right.
you've got to have a weakness in your life. It is
Mm-hmm.
good for you to have a weakness in your life. And what's
Yeah.
beautiful is the ones, and now I'll use myself only because I don't want to, well, I'll use myself. It's kind of weird. I'm trying to think through this real quick. Um, I don't think a person that has weaknesses that don't let them be known, sometimes people wonder if they have any weaknesses.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, everybody has weaknesses. There ain't nobody born that doesn't have a weakness. But the victorious ones are the ones that overcome that weakness. Not necessarily, I'm going to say it like this. When I was a young man, I was 18, I think I was, uh, maybe a little younger, but anyway, 17, 18 years old. I was riding a three-wheeler and I hit a culvert on the side of the road, rolled my three-wheeler in a barbed wire fence. The peg on the three-wheeler went through my left calf, tore my calf off, and all that kind of weird stuff. Okay. Ugh. But I was so determined. They said, you're going to have problems. Yeah, but I'm overcoming. And what's happened is day by day by day by day, little by little by little, I overcome my weak calf. And now I love to go running. I love to hike. There are limitations to me, but I don't like, and that's only one of about 500 weaknesses that I've got. But but I don't want people to see me as anything less than what God created me for. And if we don't have weaknesses, God, we become our own idol, if you will. God
Right.
can't really use us. But we can't live in those weaknesses and broadcast those weaknesses because it does nobody any good, especially us. If I become a victim of my own, whatever it may be, my own weakness or my own frailty or my own whatever it is, if I come a victim in my own eyes, I immediately limit what I can and cannot do, who I can be, everything, everything. Um, I I'm going to throw this out there real quick, and then I'm not sure how I'm going to word it because I got to be careful how I say it. But okay, so I didn't think about this before, but it's a good story. I was talking to somebody one time, and they needed some help, financial help, and I was like, okay, and I said, I'm disabled, and I can't get a job, and I'm like, oh man, what kind of disability do you have? And they said, I'm dyslexic. I didn't hit them. I didn't even raise my voice, but I'm like, that is not a disability. And I'm sorry, it is a disability. It does hold people back, but it doesn't prevent success, and it doesn't hinder you from being what God's called you to be. Elon Musk is dyslexic. I mean, there's thousands of billionaires and millionaires out there that are dyslexic, but they have determined to not use that frailty, whatever that weakness,
And I'll
as an
say
excuse.
this to that, many people are starting to use, and I really like this term, other abled. Whatever issue you have,
Yeah.
you know what? Get past that and realize that you have other abilities beyond that. I know
Yes.
growing up, I grew up part of my life with an eye patch on. Couldn't see very well and still can't without my contacts, but it was very humbling to to grow up a little different.
Yeah.
And so that was one
It
thing
is.
that it directed my life. I'll say that. It really has. God has directed me because of that.
Yeah.
But
You've got to make up your mind while I have my weaknesses, and I've got to be aware. I wrote the 13th commandment, and I'm being funny when I say that. You got the 10, and
right.
I don't know why I picked 13, but we just say 14th commandment. If God would have had 14 commandments, I think one of them, or somewhere along the lower hundred of them, would have been, thou shalt know thyself. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
I put that King James in there. Thou shalt know thyself. Because you've got to know your limits, but you also have to realize you've got great power and authority. If you just got to know what if you've got, and I'll give it a biblical example. In fact, this drives me crazy too. The Lord talked about the three people that He gave talents to, 1, 5, 1, 3, 1, 1, and He gave them talents and says, "Go use them." Well, the guy with 5 went out and used them and brought back 5 more, and the guy with 3, I think it was, and he come back and brought 3 more. The guy with 1, he said, all you don't worry about, it, just use that 1. All he could do, because he was scared or whatever else, he hid it, and of course the Lord was not happy. Now this does go back to our parents. It goes back to the thought that a parent should not be trying to um, form a child around their excuses or around their weaknesses. A parent should not be holding his children or their children back from greatness by constantly reminding them of their weaknesses or their frailty or whatever it is. I know the video, and it's been more than that, been several years ago. I saw a video about a guy that I believe he didn't have any arms or something like that, and his parents never gave him an excuse. They just treated him like, you eat, you do this, you do that, and he learned with that. And I don't remember the whole. I'll have to go back and look. Maybe somebody will know it, but he learned to live beyond his handicap. And now I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's a world-renowned speaker and motivational speaker, of course. It's just, it's up to us how we raise our children. It's up to us. And by the way, it's not just raising, it's not just nurture. It's a decision. It's the decision. I will not live like that. So priorities. Don't let your children. We're back in priorities. Don't let your children use excuses or their problems or their weaknesses. That's nonsense. I say nonsense, but it's not healthy.
Right. This doesn't deny any issue that someone may have at all, but it just says when that issue becomes your identity, then you actually have an issue. That's the problem. And so we've got to learn to overcome, because we are made overcomers by a testimony through the test. So is there anything you want to add on that? We're talking about victimhood, getting pushing through, breaking the walls of victimhood, things like that. Anything you want to add?
Yeah. No, I better not, because it'd take too long. What time is it? 8:33.
It's 8:33.
Yeah, because we got to talk about COVID-19. We got to talk about finances and the future and all that. So we'll stop right there.
Before we get into that, if anyone is watching right now, or not if, but I know you're watching, but why don't you leave a comment below?
Better be watching.
Let us know what's on your mind. Has there been any news recently that's come out that affects you, that you feel like, wow, that's changed maybe my job situation, that's changing something? We have noticed, as of today, Governor Greg Abbott has announced the opening of nail salons, barbershops. That's this Friday. And then also gyms, for all you gym rats who are going through withdrawals, not being able to go to the gym. They open up on the 18th. So you'll be able to get back into the gym and do whatever you do there. And so that's all been in the news today. Also, along with funerals, weddings, those type of things, they are considered church services. Or treated as church services because they are religious. So that's something that was brought out and clarified today by our governor here in Texas. So if you're not in Texas, we feel sorry for you. We're in a good place. Maybe you're not in as good a place if you're not in Texas. We'll just say that.
Right.
Go ahead, Pastor.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to say on the next topic?
Yeah, I would say, well, I'll just use what you did as a springboard, and I would just say that we have to be very careful that we not be so willing to I believe this is kind of a test. This COVID-19 stuff is a test, that we not be so gullible of everything everybody says, and we not be so quick to give up our liberties and our freedoms. I'm not saying that is COVID-19 real? Yes. Is it killing people? Yes. Is it deadly? Yes. But is it something that we need to roll over and play dead and say, oh, give me security, give me safety, give me help before I do anything else? I don't think that's the way we need to be. I think it's I think there's got to be somewhere in there that you know what just come to mind? Just come to mind. It just is wow. Just had this mental image. George Washington crossing the Delaware at Christmas. That come to mind. He knew the risk, but he also knew the reward.
Right.
And I think knowing that and I'll throw this out there because I preached a message a few months ago, never waste a crisis. That was the title of my message. And the reason why I got that title, where I got that title from, not necessarily, well, I got it from God, of course. God spoke to me. No, seriously, not being funny. Rahm Emanuel back in like 2000, 1999, 98, somewhere in there. He was talking. He, of course, a Democrat. I forgot what he called it, consultant. He said he's talking to Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, all them. Never waste a crisis, and he got that from somebody else, I'm sure. But the point is, I think I remember who it was, but I can't remember his name. The point is, he was saying in a political sense, when things go bad, take advantage of it. Go in there and what's happening in our world is this move for socialism, for globalism, and it's part of it is I'm not going to say that, but it might be part of the end time, all this stuff coming together. My point is, if we know that they have that mentality, then we need to be aware of it and not let them take advantage of us. And at the same time, we have to take advantage of a crisis ourselves. So there's this liberty and freedom and all these things going on. I believe that America is a bastion of freedom. It's that Statue of Liberty person. And I'm afraid that if we're not careful, we'll be so gullible that we'll lose our liberties and our freedoms. And we already have, whether we like it or not, we already have. And let me tell you, I'm filming on my camera. I mean, my phone. That's something crazy. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But my phone is now my personal tracking device. Yeah. And they've already said, they've already come out with a plan. Scientists and researchers and doctors and lawyers and everybody else has already come out with, if they find somebody that has, and this is all in the works. Let's just say, for instance, my son, you get COVID-19. Well, they get your phone and they don't even have to hold your phone, by the way. They do it on the computer. Yeah. They immediately know where you've been for the last 14 days and send a message to everybody that was around that same time period, that same place, and tell them, we need you to arrive at such and such building at such and such time for a test. And if you don't come, they're going to find you. They're going to find you and find you. Those things are not freedom oriented. Those things, and look at, like, for instance, 9/11. When 9/11 hit, even before then, I remember when I was a kid, and you don't remember this because you was born in 1990. Yep. So you don't remember that. Well, you was a baby.
I remember.
But when we used to go to the airport, and if somebody was arriving from some other place, man, we would walk all the way down, go through all their quote unquote security, drive off, get all the way up to the gate and stand there and welcome them home. Same thing leaving. Well, all of that is gone, but that's a little nugget of things. That's a tiny nugget compared to things that have changed. You had a personal relationship with a banker. They knew what you were going through. They know your character, and you'd say, hey, I need, $20,000. Oh, okay. Well, let me get your paperwork, fill this out, give me your driver's license. Thank you. Here's your $20,000, and they put it in your bank, and you're gone. Now, it is incredible at how many hoops you have to jump through. The HIPAA forms. I mean, there's so much. I, as a pastor, if somebody is abused sexually, physically, mentally, whatever, and I hear about it, I literally am supposed to go and report it to the authorities because I'm in my position. All of these things are robbing us. And I don't, maybe that's not a good example, but all these other things are robbing us of our identity and our freedoms. And it's like the frog in the water thing. We don't realize it. We just don't realize it. And not only that,
in the Orwellian state very quickly.
Pretty close, yes. But not only that, but it's a spiritual thing going on too. We've
Yeah.
got things going on in our society that 10 years ago we would have never dreamed they would happen, but they're happening. And not only it's the old thing, what we accept today, we embrace tomorrow, and what we embrace tomorrow, we live a few days later. It's that
Mm-hmm.
same concept. And if we don't get it and hold on to some principles, um, I'm afraid that we're gonna lose them without even knowing it. And then we're gonna
Right.
look at our children and give them less of a country, less of a spiritual, less of a walk with God. We're gonna give our children something less than what we've been blessed with. I'll throw this on a spiritual angle, and then I got to change subjects. But I have seen so many people raise their children in a less in a less favorable place with God and man because they took it for granted.
Right.
They're like, well, I become this good person on my own. My children are going to be good people, and I'm not going to give them anything that I got. They're not going to be what you are, and they're not. They're going to. You're losing quality every day. That's that's a very deep topic, but in fact, we don't have any time for it. But ain't nobody got time for that. But we just have to be very careful, and I believe that the government, for the most part, right now, it's a weird thing. You know, like Flynn, General Flynn. Come to find out, he was
Mm.
set up.
Oh yeah.
He was
FBI.
set up. If they're doing that to him, who else are they doing it to?
And they said
We
that's a
have got
normal
to
thing
be
for them.
wise.
Right.
Yeah, oh yeah. We have got to be wise.
Right.
And we've got to know our freedoms. We've got to know our amendments. We've got to know these things and stand on them. And, I don't know.
Well,
We're in a quandary. Go ahead.
right. I would say one of the biggest issues is when we trade everything for security or safety. And
Right.
this is something we see in the homes as families want to secure their children or protect them so much more than they do want to develop them. That becomes an issue. And the same thing with our world, our government, and everything else. We've got to be careful not to make security and safety the absolute priority. And
Yeah.
it goes back to your prioritization that we talked about earlier.
Right. I would throw this out there, and it would kind of come into my next topic, which is, did we have any questions? Did you look?
I'm looking, and if anybody does have any questions, concerns, some news they want us to discuss, we'd love to talk about it. So why don't you go ahead and put that in the comment section below? We'd love to talk to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me go to the next kind of phase of this, and then we'll maybe have more questions and answers and stuff. I don't want to be a know-it-all. That's not even my whole point of being here is let's talk about some things. Let's have some revelation taking place because we're losing our mind over some silly things. But okay, one of the things that I believe is important in our liberties that we have, and it's coming up quickly. It's going to happen. It's happening faster than we imagine. A few years ago, probably 12 or 14 years ago, I invested in a company just because they weren't known. Number one, they weren't known. They weren't advertised. Their research wasn't being put out very much, even though they had to file all the paperwork. It just wasn't real clear. So I probably shouldn't have done it, but I bought stock in a company called Digital Angel. Digital Angel. And the reason why I bought it, I didn't buy much. I mean, I don't even know what it was. It might have been $50. But it was back in the day where you really had to spend time and effort to get it in stock. Now you just push a button on one of these apps and it's done. But I bought it because I wanted to know what it's all about because I knew they were then, this is 20 years ago, or yeah, probably 20 years ago, right after we moved here, they were putting chips in people's arms, in people's hands. And now that has started speeding up digital currency. And so we're starting to see this dependence on internet, online exchange of money. We don't handle cash and all that kind of stuff. If we're going to invest, we've got to invest in the stock market. There's hardly anything else to invest in, financially. And this is one of the reasons why I brought it up because of all the priorities and the future, looking ahead. really, and this is pretty much, I'm going to say agreed upon by, I'm going to say a majority. I don't have the numbers. I think the majority of economists realize that our stock market is probably going to drop 40%, 50%, 30 to 50%, somewhere in there, in the next year or two. And the reason is it's all these ingredients are coming together, kind of like it's similar to the .com bubble in 2000 or the banking bubble in
Mm-hmm.
2008, except for now we've got other ingredients that are into this pie, and it's not going to taste good. And so people are standing there holding their money. And by the way, I'm not an advocate. Please hear me. Not an advocate of not investing in the stock market, but I do believe you need to do two things at one time, and that is invest where you need to with your retirement money and things like that. But also, I would say, and this is kind of a modus operandi for me, a mode of operating for me, is have several streams of income if you can, and invest in the real economy. And I'm not talking about the stock market is paper economy. I'm talking about invest if you can into the real economy. And at the very least you can do is invest into things that are um, tangible things, things that really matter. And again, it comes into looking forward. All this stuff is just kind of blended together like a big soup. You can invest, and I'm talking. You got to have money to invest, and you got to have. But I know when I was a young man, I was so dumb. Oh my word, I was dumb. And some of you people can attest
Aren't
to
we
it.
all?
I saw my cousin on here a while ago, and I'm like, ooh, I'm embarrassed. But anyway, I love you, Wendy. But I would invest in things. It was so dumb. And I didn't realize it was investing. It was spending little quarter here, $1 there, $1.50 there in baseball cards and stuff like that. Man, how gullible! It has very little value. I still have a box of them from the early '80s or whatever, and I mean a big box of them actually, pretty good size anyway. But my point is, if I would have taken those nickels and dimes and really invested into things that mattered, I wouldn't have half the problems I have right now. But somebody, and then this is back a couple of years ago, I read an article where if you bought, instead of buying the latest iPhone and you spent that money on the stock, in 10
Right.
years you could have bought, like, I think it was like 40 iPhones. It was crazy. And that's what I'm talking about. Don't invest and don't spend money in things that doesn't matter. Look at your life, invest in things that are going to last you 30, 40 years. And a car can be an investment, a home can be an investment. Investing in other people, invest in other people's educations, invest in the church. These are eternal investments. Some of these things go on and on and on, but I'm afraid that because of this new economy and the digital currency and stuff, we're just like going, oh, that's the only place I can put my money. Buy gold, buy silver, buy land, buy a business, start a business, learn a trade, invest in your own education, invest in your kids, invest in your grandkids. Be a partner and let some young person, if you have an idea, say, hey, I've got an idea and I think you could take this idea and run with it. I'll put the money up and you put the sweat in, and let's be
Sweat
partners.
equity. Right.
Yes, yes. I just think that we're missing some things. So I need to probably slow down or stop so that we don't miss any questions. But I think we just need to look way ahead, so much farther ahead, with wisdom and good counsel is good. Bad counsel is bad. Somebody recently told me, "And the multitude of counsel is wisdom." I agree with that scripture, 100%. But in the multitude of bad counsel is foolishness. So I think it matters who you're calling to get your counsel.
Right, I
Makes sense.
agree. And thank you for clarifying that. I know we had one comment that was trying to find out what do you mean by the real economy, and it seems like you did that when you said gold, investing in land, investing in a
Yeah.
business, things
Right.
that could be tangible, things that you actually have control over.
Right.
It's scary to think that we can, and people make money at it by putting their money in places that they let go. They let go, and the
Mm-hmm.
economy takes over.
Mm-hmm.
You have a way. You do have an ability to have some control. So, another
Mm-hmm.
comment from Daniel Lawrence said, "First COVID this month, murder hornets. Next month, alien invasion." Ha! So it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, here's a question. Jeff Baggs leaves here in the comment section. It says this, says, how can we as the church take those skill sets that we've been working on over the course of this phase to strengthen and grow our kingdom? So how's the church? I think you mean the kingdom of the church, kingdom of God.
Sure.
How
Kingdom of
can
God.
we develop and how can we expand that kingdom?
I think there's several things that we need to recognize. First of all, money is a tool. Money is just a tool. Now, when I was in air conditioning, I had a couple of air conditioning companies back in the day. Man, I would see the best tool, the newest tool, and I'm like, woohoo! I'm excited. Get me that new meter or that new pump sprayer or whatever it might have been. But anyway, kind of silly at the time, but or silly looking back.
Tools
Wasn't
can
at
be
the time.
addicting.
They sure can, and you can invest in those tools. Well, money is a tool. And so what we've done, and I think that we can see our way through this clearly, what will be, and you think with me for a moment, um, let's just go back in time. Let's say 20 years ago. Well, that would be 2000. Okay, yeah, 20 years ago. 9/11, all the wars that we've had since then, tsunamis, all the things. If we're talking about investing and using these tools for the kingdom, think about this. Every day, we have missionaries around the world that need our tools, our money. That's just one simple way of saying, keep your job, be a good employee, and invest in the kingdom. That's an easy way. Another way is to look at the local picture at the church. And I'm saying this because I pastor church and I know our weaknesses, of course. We've got a van that needs to be replaced. We need a couple of more vans actually. But my point is, we can, in between in these lulls right now, we're at this fourth inning of COVID-19. I use that analogy early in this thing, fourth inning of COVID-19. Well, we're going to go through a little lull, and in that lull, we can prepare our lives, prepare the church, get things ready for the next crazy thing that's going to happen. And I guarantee you, it will happen. I guarantee you, it's going to happen. And then I'm not even God. I'm just saying God says it's going to happen. You look just yesterday or day before, I forgot now. I was I think it was early in the morning yesterday, come to think of it. And I saw the news and it said, let's see, was it Puerto Rico or somebody had an earthquake? And I'm like, And I almost put on Twitter because I'm just like this weird thought every once in a while. I'm like, put it on Twitter. California, are you ready for the next one? They're going to have it's going to happen. It's just going to
Right.
happen. So, and it might be happening right now while we're talking. I don't know. But my point is, if we play things right, if we do things right, we grow the kingdom. Let me go back. Let me go back to the basics. We invest in the kingdom through our mission. We invest in the kingdom through our ministry, and we invest in the kingdom through our outreach, through really the rest of the mission, the local mission and the global mission, both the same, really. But we look at it so weird. Now, there are dynamics in there that you and I talked about earlier today. Let me go ahead and throw this in there. I don't know if we really have time for this. If we have any more questions, let me know and we'll stop. But today, actually for the last several weeks, it's kind of been rolling in my mind. If we ask one another, anybody, doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter where they're at, if they're in the church at all, you can ask them, give me all the examples of somebody's salvation experience in the Bible. Of course, they all would come out of the book of Acts because that is the narrative book. That's the book of events. So go to book of Acts, and then you'd find through there these pinnacle events in people's lives that expose to us how they were saved. Acts 2, Acts 8, Acts 10, Acts 19, Acts 22. and I just listed them fast, but there's five, and then there's a couple in each one of these, and you realize that every one of them were people that were already looking for God, already hungry, searching for more.
Mm-hmm.
The Acts 2, they were there. They say, theologians, I've read several, they say that there was 30,000 people in Jerusalem celebrating the Feast of Pentecost when the day of Pentecost happened. They were there hungry, looking. The Bible expresses this to us in Acts 2. Acts 8, Acts 10, Acts 19. Cornelius was searching. The man, the Ethiopian eunuch, was searching. He was searching the book. Cornelius was searching through prayer. The 12 that Paul met, have you been baptized since you believed? Oh, they were already believers. They were already looking. So, wow, how did I get off on that? Investing in the kingdom. Don't invest in the wrong things that aren't effective. Don't waste your time and effort, as the Lord said. Don't throw your pearls before swine. If they're hungry, spend time with them. Invest in them. If they're not, I don't mean to be. We're not judges, so we're not God. We can judge a tree by the fruit it bears. But if somebody comes to us and this is in my case as a pastor, I see people come into the church, and I'm sitting there watching them come in. Man, they are there because they're hungry. They didn't just stumble in and say, what are y'all doing here? They're there because of our name or because somebody invited them. They're hungry. Let's invest in them.
Right.
Now, other skills that we might have picked up, I think that there are things that we can do. For instance, I'm just blabbing more than anything, blabbing, grabbing. We can invest in things like food pantries, clothing closets, ministries that really will be beneficial one day. Those are ways that we can invest. So I hope that answers the question. But
I would say the connection between investment and growing the kingdom as far as souls, because some people see that what is the connection there? Because you may be giving some money to a missionary, you may be donating for this, or you may be investing in your time or your effort in a certain department in the church, or whatever that may be. I would say it's very attractive to the world to see somebody that can say, I'm going to invest in the eternal. I'm going to invest in something that seemingly I have given up, I have lost control over. And when they see someone that's so secure in both their faith and their finances that they trust God in what they're doing, wow, that's attractive. That's something that I believe the world can look at, and they see an anomaly. They see someone who, wait a minute, they're not selfish. They're not trying to just look out for their group, their family, but actually they're being blessed because they're giving of themselves in some way. And so I think that's the bridge between the investment, the skills, the time that you put into whatever it is in the kingdom of God, and the kingdom of God growing following that. And so we are cutting close, so we're almost at the 1 hour mark. Pastor, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we conclude this conversation tonight?
Yeah, I would. Surprise! Okay, here we go. One of the things that I taught back 6 months ago, and it's so, the older I get, the more I realize this is more important than what I've ever taught before. And then I'll come along another one. I'm like, oh my word! Everything we do needs to be for the glory of God. So if you're a young person in this crowd and you're looking at going to school and you're like, okay, do I choose school or making money? Go to school. And this is the thing. This is what differentiates us from the rest of the world. We go to school for the glory of God. Lord, whatever my education gains me in this world, let it be for your glory. Whatever knowledge, whatever talent, whatever skill, whatever talent you've given me, and I'm going back to those 5 talents, whatever you give me, let it be for your glory. And I think even when we buy cars or when we buy a home or anything we can do, Lord, I know there's probably exceptions. There's, little things, but if you're not narrow-minded, you can say, well, I just popping one up in my mind right now. I'm going to buy this gun for the glory of God. Well, actually, you can buy the gun, go hunting, kill a deer, and give half of the meat away. There's ways that you can blend the joys of life, your hobbies, whatever else. Lord, I'm gonna buy this gun and I'm gonna use it to create opportunities to fellowship with the world at the shooting range. One of our men in our church today is and he did it intentionally, very intentionally. He is a fly fisherman, loves to fly fish, and he joined a fisherman's, whatever, gender neutral fly fisher persons club. Just playing. He joined a club just so he could meet more people in the community, so he could be a light. We've got to realize this. Everything can be for His glory if we just realize how important it is.
Right. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I want to, before we go tonight, remind everyone to go connect with us online. If you're not part of Victory Church here in College Station, Texas, or you would like to be, if you're in the area, or maybe you just want to get connected with us and find out some more about what we believe, go to victoryupc.com. That's a perfect place to go. You can message us. You can find out about who we are, where we're from, what we do, that kind of thing. You've been listening to Pastor Keith Castleberry. I've just been hosting, helping, doing whatever I can. My name is Ethan Castleberry, and this has been Victory Talks. Pastor, go ahead. I know you have one more thing.
I got one more thing. One more thing. Just one more thing. Just one.
Mr.
And
One
that
More
is,
Thing.
if you've logged in the last 20 minutes or so, go back and listen to the beginning. It's very important that you learn what I tried to present today. And I'm not trying to be a know-it-all or anything.
Right.
Yeah. Go back and listen to that. It's important. God bless you.
Yes. So go back, listen to it. You'll listen to a little bit about preparation, priorities, and a few other topics that we hit on, and just a good conversation. So why don't you do that? Check us out next time, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. We've been making this a thing, so join us again Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. We want to see you there. God bless you, and have a great day.